Yep, seems to be recording now, so we'll just get into it. So I'll just say a big hello to everyone watching. This is going to be a very sort of different video. I'm joined by my good friend Mike over at Cinema Axeman. So yeah, we just wanted to get together and make this video because for those watching who don't know, Mike is a very good friend of mine, very old friend of mine. We went to school together. We met at the age of 7. And we wanted to make this video because we wanted to shed some light on someone who was very near and dear to us. A very good friend of ours who we did meet at the same time, who we grew up with, and who sadly is no longer with us. And that was our good friend, Richard. Yeah, he was a very, very special person to us. I think we could safely say he was probably the three of us had a very, very close connection, both during school and after school with Richard. And sadly, we did lose Richard last year, and we wanted to make this video for him, to talk about him, to dedicate this to him, because we want people who didn't know him to just know what a great person he was and what a great impact he had on both mine and Mike's life. And he's going to be someone who was massively, massively, sadly missed by us, his other friends, and his family. And yeah, we miss him dearly. And yeah, we just wanted to make this video for him and dedicate this to him because he was such a fantastic person. So yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Mike. If you want
to. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think you've said everything that needs to be said. Really, yeah, he's a great friend. Yeah, we met him pretty much around about the same time, and yeah, he was just a great guy and one of the funniest people I've ever met, without a shadow of a doubt. And yeah, it's just sad that he's no longer here, and he's going to be very, very sadly missed. And I know I speak for you as well that we'll just definitely miss him.
Yeah, I know. I think the word unique is definitely fitted. That word gets used a lot to describe people, but I think with Richard, he definitely was one of a kind. He was just such a brilliant lad. There was never a time, I think definitely after school, where I think the three of us got together and we just weren't. There was never a time we weren't laughing.
Yeah.
he just knew how to tap into making people laugh, I think, as well. He was just absolutely exceptional at that. He was such a gem of a character. He was just a superb person to be around. He really was.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll probably get into this later, but I think especially with movies as well, he had a great knack of finding funny things in movies that are not necessarily funny, but he just had a way of pointing them out, and then they just became funny to us. But any other time, you'd never have noticed it. He was just a genius at that.
Oh, absolutely. There was so many films that the three of us watched together, and there'd just be moments in there that would just pass us by when we were watching them on our own. But if you watched it with him, he could just make it 10 times funnier than it was. He was just hysterical watching a film with him. His impressions when we watched films as well, when he always used to quote movies and he always used to do impersonations of certain scenes in movies. He was sublime at it, and it was just hysterical. Absolutely, yeah. Just some of the funniest memories I've got with him.
Yeah, I think that was another sort of. He probably could have made like a career out of like doing impersonations because he was so good at them.
Yeah,
like just doing different sort of accents and just kind of getting the right sort of, if it was like sort of you needed to sound happy or angry or sad or something, like he just had a great way of doing them, and they were just so funny.
Yeah, he's like I said, he just had a way of tapping into that. He could just be, you could just see him like walking towards you if you were going to meet him, and for some reason there was always like a smile would creep on my face, just because I knew he was going to do something funny like as soon as I saw him and make us laugh. And do that. He had such a knack for it. He was such a great person. I think you said this on a stream at one point when we were talking about him. He had like a very comforting presence about him. Like when you were with him or talking to him or anything like that, and you might have been feeling like down in the dumps or something like that, he would be able to put things into perspective and make you feel like things were going to be all right, things are going to be okay. And that's one thing I absolutely miss about him.
He kind of like, all your problems kind of went away when you were like in his presence. You just kind of stopped thinking about them and just had a laugh and just had a good time. Yeah, he was such a superb person for doing that. As well, I want to get into sort of a bit about him himself and what he achieved in his lifetime, because what Richard achieved was, I think, a lot of us could only really sort of dream about, which is sort of, I want this to be something that I want this to be something that for him to be remembered for, because growing up with him, the first time me and Mike met him was at school, and we grew up with him, and he was like that at school as well. The infectious laughter was there. He was such a joy to be around. But I think when it came to academics with Richard, he took to it like a duck to water. Definitely towards the later years in school, when we got to GCSEs and A levels and stuff like that, there wasn't anything he couldn't do. He just had a knack for it, and so many people, anyone who had a lesson with Richard, anyone who went to school with me and Mike and Rich, who may be watching this, and I do encourage people who did go to school with Rich, who did know him, to leave comments if you want to share a memory about Rich down below. There wasn't anything academically he just couldn't do, and he was an inspiration to pretty much everyone when it came to that aspect of life and that chapter where you're at school and you want to try and sort of do the best at exams, do the best at practical exams, stuff like that. Richard was the benchmark as a person for doing that. He achieved 10 A stars at GCSE, which was pretty much unheard of. Despite this, we went to a very sort of, I don't want to say upper class school, but we went to a school that had high standards for itself, definitely. And although I've just said Richard got 10 A stars there, if he was watching this, he'd probably say, "Why the fuck did you say that?" Yeah.
He probably would say that, because although Richard was amazing academically and just achieved so much, he did not seek any sort of recognition for it. In his mind, it was very much job done. I just want to move on to the next thing. He just wanted to be the best he could be, but do it very quietly and just get on with the next sort of chapter he had to get on with. And that was very much a done deal. He didn't like to have a big song and dance, a big sort of recognition parade for it. He was very modest about it, and I really like that about Rich. He just kind of got, I mean, there were things he could do that I was just in awe of. I think a lot of people were kind of jealous of him as well with his ability to do it. It was just, he was amazing. He was just amazing at it.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, he was very humble, even though he was so good, like academically, but he didn't like all the praise and all that. He just wanted to get on with it, basically.
Yeah, he just got on with it, because, like I said, I remember we had a speech night at our school, and it was mentioned in front of the entire school that he achieved 10 A stars in GCSE. And the next day, I said to him, "Oh, yeah, I see you got a mention," and he just went, "Oh, that really pissed me off,"
Yeah, I remember that.
He was fuming. He was absolutely fuming. He was just like, "Oh, why did they do that?" But
Yeah.
I was just like, I just said, you did well. You deserved it. You did amazing. But to him, it was just kind of like another day at the office. It was just kind of like, I've done that. I want to move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Which was that was just Richard all over. He had this gentlemanly presence about him. Everything, I'd go as far to say he was very much like he wanted to be a perfectionist in his own way. He was yeah, I mean, I remember once we were in a maths class with him. I think we were in set 3, and we got set a maths task, and I think the teacher gave us like 2 weeks to do it. And when we all had to, 2 weeks later, we all handed in like what we'd done for it. And I think the next lesson after that, he said only one person in the class managed to do it correctly, and he said it was Richard. And then the next lesson, Richard moved up to set 1.
Yeah.
And we were like, well, how come you? He's like, I've been moved up to set 1 because it was just insane what he could do. He was just in awe. But like I said, anyone who knew him, anyone who had a class with him, just knew what an inspiration he was, and the way he conducted himself academically was just nothing short of brilliant. But he just didn't seek praise for it at all. He just kept himself to himself, and it was just a closed chapter for him. And it was he was on to the next thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, he achieved that at GCSE. I assume he did massively well at his A levels. I don't know what his grades were, but I assume it was A's and A stars. Definitely when he went on to university.
Yeah, because I think he did biology and chemistry. I can't remember what the third one was. Oh, I think it was French. I think he did French for some reason.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm pretty sure he got. I think it was 3 A stars for all 3 of them.
It was definitely a clean sweep for him.
Yeah.
But after that, he followed in the footsteps of his parents and his brother, and he went on to become a doctor. I've got some happy memories of him when he was messaging me when he was on his placement for training to be a doctor. He did 7 years of medical school at Leeds University, and he went on to he got his degree and his PhD. And I think from then on we were calling him Dr. Ridyard. Followed on in the footsteps. Like I said, in his family, his father was I believe his father was a heart and lung doctor, and his mother was a stroke doctor, and his brother went on to become an obstetrician. So it ran in the family with him, and he definitely sort of followed suit and just took to it. So yeah, he just achieved so much in the short time he was here. But yeah, he did that, and I think after that, I think things sort of, I don't want to get too much into it, but I think he kind of may have realized where he was in his life. He wasn't very happy. He wasn't content with his situation, and I think it might have been the worst part of his life for him, struggling wise. Because I didn't know personally too much about that period of his life. But he did mention it to me in passing, and I had struggles as well when I was leaving school, and I had a conversation with him, and he kind of just told me where he was at and what was happening. And I was glad to see him back on track at that time. I was glad to see him. He was in a good place. He seemed happier. I think he moved to Scarborough, and I think the job of a doctor, for me, in my opinion, it's more of a lifestyle. It's very much sort of, you don't seem to hardly get any sleep. It's very much a very demanding job, but I just don't think it was for him. That life, I think it took its toll on him.
Yeah.
And yeah, he came back to where he was from, and I think things seemed to pick up for him over the next couple of years, and he was kind of happier. I think he started his own business with his business partners, trading in medical equipment, and he met his girlfriend as well. Yeah, I do want to say, is it
Lauren?
Lauren? Yeah.
Hmm.
And yeah, and then it was then pretty much we've been seeing each other every opportunity we could. I think we went on dog walks, the three of us together. We'd get together and just have chats. Sometimes we just get together and have a chat, and we wouldn't even watch a film. We just get together. We always found the time to do it. And I think the last time I saw him was just a couple of days before New Year's Eve, the end of 2022. And I remember we were at your house, and I think Ghostbusters 2 was on the telly.
Ah, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And I think that was the last time I saw him alive. He just seemed very sort of up and down over the place and traveling quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I thought things will line themselves out for you. You'll be all right. But sadly, it wasn't to be. And one of the last messages I have of him, it always breaks my heart when I see it, is the three of us were in a WhatsApp group together, and he put a message in that group saying, "I hope 2023 is going to be a great year." That was one of the last messages we have of him, and it's a treasured message. I think for both of us. But yeah, he like I said, an amazing person. I know it's cliche to say, but he really was. He really was. I then, few months later, we were still texting on and off because he was a big football fan as well. Although the three of us went to a school in Liverpool, Richard didn't like to admit this, but he was a massive Manchester United fan. And I found it really strange that the three of us, as close as we were as friends, we all supported different football clubs. And he didn't like to talk about which team he supported for obvious reasons, where the school he went to. But yeah, Manchester United were so lucky to have him as a fan, because I know how much he loved that club and he loved football, and he was so frustrated with international football, with England as well, and the performances in and out through the years. But he loved the sport. He loved Man United, and he was just a joy to talk to. Even though we all supported different clubs, there was no malice there. There was no sort of maliciousness to being supporting different clubs. We all just got on. We could all just talk football when we wanted to, and it was just a joy, just an absolute joy. But yes, sadly, on the 18th of April 2023, we received the news that Richard had passed away. I received the news from his family, and I was told by his family pretty much get in touch with everyone from school. He said, "We know you were a treasured friend of his, and we want to sort of just if you wouldn't mind letting people know from school, his friends, what had happened. So I just felt it was my duty to do that to him. I wanted to do that for him, and just let people know. And yeah, we that was that, really, wasn't it? It just came as a bombshell. I wasn't expecting it at all. The rug was just pulled from under me. I've never lost someone probably as close as Rich to me before. Someone that I grew up with, someone that I thought would be around for years and years to come. I really did. But he had his demons that he was battling. Sadly, it just it was too much for him. But yeah, we've got our memories of him, and I'll treasure them forever. Because even when I think of him now, I can't help but not smile, because the memories would be so funny. I don't know how. I assume you feel the same.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are times where I sometimes I forget that he's gone, and it can be quite hard sometimes. But yeah, just having all those memories is just it's just treasure them forever. I can remember sort of the time when his doctoring kind of came to an end, and it was a difficult period for him. I remember there was like a couple of times where me and him went away together, like skiing. We went a couple of times, and he was like sort of he was going through like a rough patch there, but I think it was something that he needed, and it was great to see him just enjoying himself when we did that. And also lately, I know I've been sending you some stuff, but I found like a load of audio messages from him, because over the years we like sort of going back to movies, he'd just every so often he'd send me like a WhatsApp audio message, and it would just be a quote from a movie, just like a funny one. And I thought like I'd lost them all, and I found them all on my computer, and I've just been going through listening to them. And I think you said it when I sent a few over, but it's just surreal listening to his voice. But it's great to just have that sort of stuff, and I can just listen to it forever. And we've got like numerous video clips of us together that are just great. But yeah, it is what it is. We carry on. But yeah, I'll definitely miss him.
Yeah, like you said, that was again part and parcel of his sense of humor. The recordings and things like that. He was a little bit of a practical joker. Oh my god, he didn't half make me laugh sometimes when it came to that. I think there was an incident as him and his family were in New York with his brother. Him and his brother were staying in one room, and I think the parents were staying in the other room. And they rang the parents' room pretending to be the reception, and they said there's a massive phone bill from phone calls from this room to Saudi Arabia, and you could hear his dad just in hysterics down the line. Just like he recorded it, and my god, it was so funny to watch. He had a way of presenting it to you as well, as like to get you in the funny sense of humor type of vibe for it as well. And he did that countless times. He was doing it at school. He was just doing it everywhere. And even his business partner spoke at his funeral and said Rich had a knack for recording. And as soon as he said it, I think me and you were just like, yeah, that's Rich to a T. That was definitely him. But as well, I think you probably know more so about this, but Richard was also a very talented musician. He was an excellent guitar player, I thought.
He really was, yeah.
That was again another side to him that he didn't really people didn't really know about when they knew about Rich, but he was an excellent guitar player.
Yeah, I can know because I think when he started playing, I think he got like professional lessons from someone, and I can just remember there were times I think you were there as well, where we just get the guitars out and we just start jamming, and I just remember like some of the stuff Rich just came up with on the spot was just ridiculous, and I think he hadn't even really been playing all that long, but I think just as well as being a good guitarist, he just had a good musical brain, and he could just come up with some great stuff. And also, he was just great at changing the lyrics to certain songs to
oh god, yeah,
just to make them funnier and to kind of, it was normally poking fun at us, but yeah, that was just another comedic quality of his that was just so funny.
Yeah, I remember I started filming him one time and he didn't realize I was filming him, and he would get like funny annoyed, like, oh, what are you
yeah,
that would be him. But
yeah, but then he'd get over it and then just start like
he'd just carry on. Yeah,
just mess around.
He'd just carry on. He'd be messing around, be goofing about, but he could play the guitar so well. But he'd change these lyrics to like really big famous songs, to like some of the most outlandish, funniest things you've ever heard.
Yeah.
Like I remember him like Dancing Queen by ABBA. He would just change the lyrics to that. What's that song by The Darkness?
Like, I Believe in a Thing Called Love.
I Believe in a Thing Called Love. That every time me and you are, I think, out in town or like we're out and about, when that song comes on, cannot help but not think of Rich, because it's synonymous, that clip that we have of him playing the guitar. It's hysterical, and a lot of the Sum 41 stuff.
I think it was like, I remember like House of the Rising Sun, and what else was there? I think there was like There She Goes by the Laws, I think. Just random songs.
Just the most random songs ever, but Rich could play them excellently on the guitar, but he changed the lyrics up to some of the most borderline like offensive words, and just be funny with it, and it'd be the most. He changed the lyrics like with these offensive words, and you'd get the most outlandish concoction of lyrics that you've just ever heard. And he was just so good at it, so funny. He hit the nail on the head every time with the laughs when it came to doing that with the songs. He just never failed at all doing it. But he was a superb musician. There was a musician who played his classical guitar at his funeral. He played. I didn't realize this was such a big song with him, but he played "Here Comes the Sun" by the Beatles at the funeral, which I've got to say is the celebration of life that he had was absolutely fantastic in terms of a send off for him. It couldn't have been better. I was so glad to see so many faces from school there as well. And so much love for him at the funeral.
I think despite the circumstances, it was kind of nice to reconnect with a lot of people. Like, so either if it was just by texting them or by actually seeing them at his funeral. Obviously we'd all prefer to just have Rich back, but like you said, it was good to see so many people and so many people there to, just to pay tribute to him, basically.
Yeah, it was because I think it's fair to say when we were at school, I think towards the later years, there was a massive divide in our year group at school. It was very much split in two. But I think when I was getting in touch with people and messaging people, all that kind of faded away for me. It was very much we've lost someone, one of our own, and it kind of just reset the playing field quite a bit. And people that I would never message, that people that I hadn't seen in 15 years, I had to get in touch with, and it was just talking to them like as if I was talking to them at school again. It was very bizarre, very surreal. People we went to school with rang me straight after. Wanted to speak with me. Because I think out of everyone at school, I think me and you probably were the two who kept in touch with Rich, certainly the most. If that, because he kept his cards very close to his chest when it came to friends and things like that. He was. I don't know if I want to say selective, but he definitely had close friends, and I'd like to say I'd value myself as one of them, and you as well. Definitely. But yeah, we got in touch with him. The thing that stuck out for me as well on that day when we had to say goodbye to him was me and you met his partner for the first time. And that's something that will stick with me, because we went up to her and we introduced ourselves. We hadn't met, and then she said to us, he talked about you two so much. He talked about you two a lot, and that really sort of took me aback. Because although we had never met her before, all three of us kind of knew what a great person he was, like what a fantastic individual he was, and what he was capable of, how much he's going to be missed. It was it was a hard day, but we said bye to him in the best way that we could.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's we just wanted to make this video again, just talking about him, letting people know what a great person he was, because although me and you, we do YouTube, we talk a lot of films, and that's why we do YouTube. We wanted to make this video for Richard because, as well as our growing up watching films was a big part of that, Richard was also a big part of the film side of growing up as well. And the B films that I don't think me and you would even know about if it wasn't for him.
Yeah.
And appreciate films differently because of him as well. So yeah, I was going to say as well, we're recording this at the end of August, and this is going to be broadcast on the 27th of September, which is what would have been Richard's 34th birthday. So we want to broadcast it then, and in celebration of his life. And I think also we were going to talk about some of his favorite films growing up with as well. So there was a huge list, but a very unique list. Definitely when it came to Richard's favorite films.
Yeah.
So the first one I've got is Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a copy of the movie, but yeah. This is one again that I remember. His impressions of Mrs. Doubtfire was spot on.
Yeah.
Definitely, we could just watch this movie over and over again with him, and again, one of these movies, he'd find stuff in there that was just, he'd just make 10 times funnier than it actually was.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think because that film has like Robin Williams, and he was also someone who was just a master of doing different voices and impersonations and things like that. That was something that Rich just took to, and he just loved that kind of thing. And yeah, like you said, just the way he'd quote that movie, the so many different parts of it. It was great. And I think that's another thing where a lot of those audio clips I got, a lot of them were from Mrs. Doubtfire. And yeah, I think it was probably, it might have been one of his favorites. I'm sure I seem to remember him saying that, but he was just, that was always a great film to watch with him.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of liken what happened with Rich to sort of Robin Williams in the same way, as they both sort of had tragic endings, but their ability to make people laugh and make people feel comforted, I think.
Yeah.
Which is just something you just don't come by nowadays. Yeah. It was a very unique trait they had.
Yeah.
But a good one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was just something I definitely liken to Richard when I think of that movie.
Yeah.
This other one I've got is I know Rich was a massive fan of these movies, particularly the first two, Scary Movie 1 and 2.
Yeah. Oh.
There's a funny story that the three of us had with Scary Movie 2. Because I think the three of us got together one night and we watched Scary Movie 1. And again, his impressions, his mannerisms that he got from that film, absolutely hysterical and on point. Yeah. I think we watched the first one and we were just like, we really want to watch the second one, but none of us had a copy of it at the time.
No.
And we scoured the earth for a copy of Scary Movie 2, but we could not find one for the life of us. We were traveling everywhere to find a copy of this movie.
Didn't we go to like downtown Rain Hill and downtown St. Helens?
Yeah.
I think we went to didn't we go to like the big Tesco to see if they had it in the DVD section? I'm pretty sure we did.
I'm definitely sure we ended up in Tesco one night because we were just looking for a copy of this movie and we just couldn't find one for the life of us.
I think we found Scary Movie 1 in Tesco and we were like, oh, there it is. And then oh no, it's Scary Movie 1.
I generally think we found the first one and the third one.
Yeah,
but we couldn't. The second. We just not the second one. We just wasn't meant to be that night.
Yeah,
it was just like, nah, you know, because I think we ordered the Domino's that night. And we just sat down and the three of us, we just watched it, and
Yeah.
We were just like, oh, let's watch the second one. And we were like, oh, we don't have it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. But even the third one, like it's not really my favorite. But I can remember there was a couple of bits in that one that Rich found funny, and I think it was probably him. He was the reason that film became funnier for me.
Yeah.
I think in particular, there's a scene that takes place at a funeral, and there's a scene where I think the main character gets like his head stuck in the head of a bus as it drives away, and I think I never found that bit funny, but as soon as I watched it with Rich, it was hilarious.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. It was his laugh. He had a 1 in a million laugh. Mm-hmm. Like if you heard him laughing, if someone presented you with about 10 recordings, all of them with different laughs, and his one was in there, you could pick his out easily. Because his laugh was just so infectious. And even when you watch the films later on again without him on your own, your mind would immediately go back to watching it with him and hearing that laugh in your head. It was he just had that magic about him.
Yeah.
I think like the movie so much more enjoyable.
Yeah. I think those films in particular, whenever I rewatch them, I always imagine Rich is sitting next to me when I'm watching them, because there's just so many bits that I just used to laugh at with him, and just made the film so much more funnier. So I always imagine he's just there next to me when I'm watching them.
Oh, yeah, I'm the same. Mm-hmm. And yet it's just the same for this next one. This film isn't known for its comedy, but there are moments in it and impressions that he did in it that really worked and stuck with me, and it is James Cameron's Titanic.
Yeah, I was thinking about, because I think Titanic was the first film. I think Titanic was the reason that me and Rich became friends, because I remember in school we had to play like rugby and cricket and all that, and I think we were kind of like, we weren't the most sportiest of people in school. And I think Rich was a little bit more sporty, but there were times where we just ended up in a group with him. And I can just remember playing cricket, and we just started talking about Titanic for some reason. But I think with Titanic, because there's a scene in Titanic, I'm sure everyone knows it, with Kate Winslet where she strips naked. And I think, for young lads our age, that was quite a big talking point of the movie. Yeah. And I just remember me and Rich just started talking about that bit, and yeah, that's pretty much where the friendship started.
Yeah, that I always remember that. I always remember that sort of going on in the background with you two guys with the Titanic thing. But yeah, I remember we were going to see a James Bond film, and I remember like the build up to that film. We were just quoting Titanic in the seats. We were just watching. It's the stuff in that movie, I think, with Billy Zane that I remember him quoting, and all the like when that movie shit's hitting the fan. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
All the people's reactions and all the goings on in that film. I think he quoted it, and could just, like I said, what I think needs to be understood about Rich is he could find, not distastefully, but find the humor in certain situations and certain things in movies. He could just completely draw that out and amplify it and just make it so funny.
Yeah,
movie. Just some of the dialogue in Titanic, he just knocked it out of the park with his impersonations.
Yeah, and even like I can always remember like with the end of the film when when the Titanic's sinking and things are happening to people. Like, I just remember Rich would. It's again things that aren't supposed to be funny, but he'd just make them funny. Like I remember there's a scene where it's like one of the maids or something. She's like holding on to someone, and she just loses her grip, and you just see her sliding down the boat, and she's like screaming. But I just remember Rich doing like an impression of that, and from then on, I just found the scene funny, but it's not really meant to be funny. But so many bits of the film like that, he'd find the funny side of it.
Yeah, I mean, even when he was doing an impression of like a serious moment, because the way times he do an impression of like a serious moment, I couldn't help but laugh.
Oh yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like there'd be like a really serious moment in the film, and Rich would do an impression of it. He'd be like, "Fill these boats, man." That, but
Yeah,
he would just the way he would every time he did an impression, he was 110% committed to it.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah.
it was convincing. It felt like you were watching the film when he was doing it. My God, it was hysterical.
Yeah, yeah.
It was so funny. But he was like this with a lot of movies. Rich,
Yeah.
he definitely had his favorites, but my God, if he latched onto something, he just pointed out to you, and you'd be in fits of laughter. You'd be gasping for air.
Yeah.
My word. But yeah, this next one's definitely a comedy. It's a 2-pack, but I don't think he actually saw the first one in this double feature, but definitely the later movie. So this is Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So Happy Gilmore definitely was one of his favorites.
Yeah.
I think although it's a sports movie, it's a golfing movie. Adam Sandler, probably one of his better movies, but I didn't even know Richard saw this movie or was a fan of it, to be honest, because it just didn't seem like his cup of tea, his type of movie. But he absolutely adored this film. It was just funny because I think we were at my house and we had the putters out and we were hitting balls, and he did this impression of Happy Gilmore where he just said, "There's a scene in the movie where Happy hits the ball and he just screams." It's just like, why is he screaming? He just hasn't even seen where the ball's gone or anything like that. And every time I watch Happy Gilmore now, I just think of Rich at that scene. Just like how you reminded me of it.
Yeah, that scene's a perfect example of him pointing out something that I didn't think was funny, and then it was after he pointed it out. And like you said, when I watched the movie, that scene is just so funny because it just doesn't make sense. Like, why is he celebrating when he doesn't even know where he's hit the ball? Like, where's it gone?
That is definitely, you know, one of the movies I'll think of when I think of Rich. But there's one Adam Sandler movie that I do think more of when I think of Rich, and I know I definitely love this film. It's with Drew Barrymore, the Wedding Singer.
Yeah.
I adored this movie growing up. I thought it was such a delightful film, very easy to watch type of film, and again, with an amazing soundtrack, and again, one of Richard's favorites. He absolutely loved it. Just quote it. Find so many funny characters in it. The Steve Buscemi character, I remember him doing impressions of that.
Yep.
When he was like the depressed crying, like Good Wedding Singer.
Yeah.
Again, he would nail it with the commitment to the impression.
Yeah.
He loved that film.
I can remember like the main character that Adam Sandler plays, like, because there's a couple of times in the film where he plays songs that he's written, and I just remember Rich, like, he just learned the songs on the guitar.
Yeah.
There was no, like, because I think back then, like, at the age we were, I think we'd always have to sort of seek out the tabs or the music to learn how to play it. But he'd just learn it straight away. Like, he'd learn the chords, and I can just that song at the end of the movie that he's singing on the plane. Like, I can remember Rich just playing that once and singing it. And yeah, I think that's probably one of the reasons why it probably was his favorite Adam Sandler film, because of that sort of that musical theme that it has.
Yeah, like you said, it was a testament to his talent as a musician. Again, the way he was just able to take to a duck to water. With hearing the music and playing it.
Yeah.
For daft reasons, I'll always remember that scene on the plane with Billy Idol when he's just like, "You guys got to help me. They're on this plane." He's like, "Right." It's like, "Yeah." Like Rich would say, "What's the plan? What are they going to do?" Like, what's going to amount to that? Like,
I know.
That was his. He would find the logic in a silly situation in a movie, and it would just make it funnier. And that was definitely one I remember. The end of The Wedding Singer. As much as I love the film, he just enhanced my enjoyment of it so much. And I'll always, every time I watch that movie, I'll think of him.
Yeah.
This next one definitely is. I think it was a childhood favorite of his. Absolutely adored this one. Matilda.
Yeah.
Obviously, for me, Danny DeVito was the star of it, and again, as well, the Trunchbull in that movie, I think, absolutely just chews the scenery in that film, and that just gave Rich so much to work with when it came to the impressions, and he was doing Trunchbull.
Yeah.
My God, just the little things like "sit down, Bog," when he used to say that, and
I remember watching that movie with him, I think at his house. I don't think I've seen him laugh so much because it's the scene when Matilda and Miss Honey are in the Trunchbull's house, and the Trunchbull comes back and they have to like hide from her, and the Trunchbull just kind of like she starts acting like a hunter, like a wild animal or something, just hunting them, and it's just some of the faces she makes, and Rich. This is another thing, Rich. This is another thing he'd do, but he'd pause the screen at like just the right moment when the character's doing a certain face. Because I think there's a bit where I think the Trunchbull's like upstairs and she's like running from one side, and then she hears a noise from the other room, and she just skids and turns round. And it's just when she turns round, the look on her face, and Rich just paused it, and I just remember him he couldn't stop laughing. I think we just kept repeating the scene just to watch it again and again.
He would do that sometimes. He'd take the scene back like over and over again, and just play it over and over. It would never get annoying. It would just get funnier.
Yeah, it would get funnier. Yeah.
It would just get funnier. Like the more and more you'd look at a scene with him.
Mm-hmm.
He was just brilliant at it.
Yeah.
This next one, I kind of grew to like. I liked it at the time I saw it, but it kind of grew with me later, and I didn't ever sort of end up watching this movie with him at all. But I want to mention this one because I know he absolutely loved this film, Fish Called Wanda.
Oh yeah.
He was a big John Cleese fan. Definitely, like he loved Monty Python and all that. I know, obviously, Monty Python for me is a required taste. I do like it. I just don't love it, but it's a required taste. But I think Rich was in love with it. He just loved that type of humor. You know, stuff with John Cleese. Another one I haven't got to show, but Rat Race with John Cleese. He loved that movie. Loved him in that film. That type of humor. I think he kind of sort of I don't want to say based his image off, but I think he took inspiration from John Cleese, just kind of like how sort of like his mannerisms and stuff like that round about school. Because I remember one or two people saying at school, like, he kind of reminds me of John Cleese a little bit. just his mannerisms and that. But I wouldn't have known about that movie if it wasn't for him, because he put me onto that film. I mean, he was showing me clips of it when I was around at his house, and with like Jamie Lee Curtis, Kevin Kline, and I was just like, what is this movie? This is absolutely insane. But he just knew the lines word for word. He would quote it all the time.
Yeah.
He just loved the movie.
I remember because that was one of those films that I hadn't seen it, and I think I remember he lent me his VHS of it, I think in year 7. And I watched it and I enjoyed it, but because I'd only seen it the one time, I didn't really remember all the quotes. But I just remember he'd be quoting it in school, and there were times where I just didn't really know what he was talking about. I remember there's a bit where Kevin Kline, I think he calls John Cleese he calls him a spineless bimbo, and I just remember Rich would go around school like, "Oh, you spineless bimbo," and I'd just be like, "What's that from?"
Yeah, that was it. You just have a way of weaving it into everyday life.
Yeah,
the quotes of movies. Just he was exceptional at it.
Yeah.
This next one, I think if he was here, we'd all agree how much enjoyment we get from this film. It's not an amazing movie by any means, but the humor's on point for me. Eddie Murphy, Nutty Professor.
Yeah, that's definitely in my top 5 films that I associate with Rich.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Just Eddie Murphy's mannerisms, he nailed again when he would be doing these impressions and making us laugh.
Yeah.
The whole dinner scene, the whole that whole sort of comedians rebuttal battle going on in that nightclub. Rich would just impersonate. One of the recordings you sent me was of that. Sort of when Eddie Murphy was laughing, he'd take this big deep breath, like as if he was diving underwater before laughing, and Rich just nailed it. He just could just make it out and make it so funny.
Yeah, I think that's one thing about his impressions as well. Like when he did them, he would give 110%. And I think that movie in particular, like Eddie Murphy is like, I don't know what he was on when he made that movie, but his performance is so over the top, and Rich's impressions would be over the top. If he did an impression of someone screaming at the top of their lungs, he would do the exact same. He'd just like scream down the, like if he was sending an audio message, he'd just scream down the phone, like, you know, not worried about if someone would hear him or something like that. He'd just give 110% with those impressions.
Yeah, he absolutely killed it. Absolutely just killed it with those impressions. It was almost borderline scary how good he was at doing them. It was just so bizarre, and we would probably walk past thinking, "What the fuck's he doing?" Like,
I know, yeah.
but he just didn't give a shit. He was just like, "I'm just doing an impression from Nutty Professor." Like,
yeah, I think even some of those audio recordings that I've got of him doing impressions, I'm sure some of them, I'm sure he recorded them like in the middle of a street, because you can hear people like walking behind him. So he just had no problem with just doing it in public.
Yeah, he just did. I mean, I've got like so many memories of him as well, just like doing shit and so many funny, just getting off topic a little bit. But when he was like, I remember one time I was out walking the dog, and I had to stop because my dog had done its business, and I had to pick it up. And this car just came past and beeping its horn, and it was Rich. He was just like waving at me, like he was in traffic. He didn't give a fuck. He would just do it. He would just do it. I mean, there's a memory I've got at school. I don't even think I was there, but I remember. I think you were talking about it one time where he was walking over to the pavilion to get ready for a game of cricket or something, and he had this big bag, and the cricket bat was sticking out, and there was like a couple of kids younger in his way, and he was like, "Move out my way, or I'll ram this up your ass."
Yeah.
And one of the teachers heard him, and they were like, "Whoa, like calm." He was like, whenever he got caught, he would turn bright fucking red like a fucking tomato. I'll always remember that about them. Like he'd just be filled with regret and embarrassment. Oh God, no. Yeah. Like, it was great. It was great. I always remember that about him.
Yeah.
As well, but yeah, his energy was up there. It was just superb.
Yeah.
I think these next ones are definitely something I'll associate with him always. These next sort of 3 series of movies, I just synonymous when I think of Richard, and I can't watch any of these movies really without thinking about him.
Yeah.
So these next lot are the James Bond films.
Yeah.
I think these were his bread and butter.
Mm-hmm.
We could all watch these films and find some enjoyment in all of them, I think. I'd say he never actually said this. He never actually confirmed it to either of us. But I think it was safe to say his favorite James Bond was Roger Moore.
Yeah.
I think that's the one he gravitated to the most. If you've ever seen the James Bond films or watched them in full, the Roger Moore era has this comfort factor to it.
Yeah.
It has like a very sort of, we're going on an adventure with this guy and we're in his hands and we feel safe type of vibe to those movies. And I think that's what Richard got from them when he watched them. And I think that's why he loved that Roger Moore era so much, and even Roger Moore himself, because he said to us, I've been reading Roger Moore's biography, and I've just got to the bit where he's filming A View to a Kill with Grace Jones, and the two of them don't really get on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not saying he disliked the others, but Roger Moore for him, I think was up there as his favorite Bond.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think again, sort of like John Cleese, I feel like he kind of tailored his personality a bit to Roger Moore. When he sort of was being more of like a gentleman kind of thing, he would always be sort of Roger Moore's James Bond. So yeah, I think it's safe to say he was definitely his favorite. But yeah, like again, like with any of the Bond films, there were times where he'd point out certain things. Like there are so many times in Bond movies where Bond would just go up behind like a villain and he'd just kind of like hit them on the back and they'd just get knocked out. And I just remember Rich would be like, "Oh, that would never happen." like they wouldn't just get knocked out like that. But yeah, from then on, it was like, yeah, you're probably right. It's just so silly, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many scenes from the series that he pointed out to me, and I would just mention the film. I'd just say if I said to him "Diamonds Are Forever," if I just said that, he'd point out that scene with the dentist and the scorpion, where he just drops the scorpion, like, oh, like that. Rich just nailed it. He would do an impersonation of the music, like
yeah,
and all that, and like the faces that the two villains make at the end, and when he flips him over the boat, like way, like all that. If you watch those films, those like silly sound effects, Rich was able to pick up on them like a metal detector and just polish them off and make them so funny.
Yeah.
The other one I remember is the scene in GoldenEye with the champagne.
Oh yeah.
My word, that scene absolutely gets me. It's I think it's the scene where Bond's fighting Xenia in the steam room.
Yeah.
And one of the henchmen walks in, and he made the point of saying, you don't know if that guy's there to help Bond or help Xenia, because he just shows up, he just walks in, and Bond knocks him out.
Yeah,
it's one of the funniest moments you'll ever see in a Bond movie. Without realizing it, because he pointed it out to us, and we were just in fits of laughter.
Yeah, I can remember we all watched that together, and it was just so funny. But yeah, I can remember. There was also just a lot of serious moments in Bond that he'd just he'd find the funny side to it. Like funnily enough, I'm actually rewatching the Bond films, and I watched From Russia with Love the other night, and there's a scene in that where they're on the train, and Robert Shaw's character Red Grant, he's kind of like got Bond cornered in the little suite that they have in on the train, and he's just got the gun on him, and Robert Shaw's just like, "Oh, you're not getting out of this. Like, I'm gonna kill you." And then Bond just says, "Oh, I've got what does he say? He says, I've got 50 gold sovereigns." Yeah. And even though Robert Shaw's like, no, nothing's getting you out of this. As soon as he says 50 gold sovereigns, he's just like, "Where are they?" And I just, Rich just found that so funny, because he was like, I thought nothing was going to get him out of this, and he's like, "Oh, I'll turn my head to 50 gold sovereigns."
I always remember that impression of him, where obviously Robert Shaw meets his demise in that movie, where he kind of like Bond's trying to Rich's impression of that scene, where he just like, he just like falls asleep like so quickly. My God, it's just he just nailed the impressions.
And another sort of thing with them is there was kind of like a running gag. I think it was especially in the Roger Moore Bond films, where if like a villain got like pushed off a cliff or fell off a building, they'd make this like scream, and it would always be the same sound effect they'd use. I just remember Rich's impression of that. Oh my God, just again so over the top, but. Yeah, every time I hear that particular scream, I just think of Rich.
Yeah, I mean, he was a massive Bond fan. He loved them. I think we kind of sort of gravitated a lot with the Bond movies. I mean, we made the effort to go and see a couple of them at the cinema, I think, together.
Yeah.
I think we saw. I think Spectre was the last one we all saw together, and yeah, I've admittedly I wasn't Daniel Craig's biggest fan as Bond, but I think Rich kind of just took them for what they were. But
yeah, I don't think he was a particularly big fan of Daniel Craig either. I know he definitely preferred the more classic era. I can remember because me and him went to the same. We both went to Leeds together. We didn't go to the same university, but we were in the same city. And I remember going to visit his student house, and he had like this tiny little shelf of a few DVDs. And I just remember Quantum of Solace was always there, but it was still in the cellophane, and it was just still wrapped in the cellophane for the entire time. And he was just like, "Oh, I just can't be bothered to watch it yet. I just haven't got around to it." So I don't think he was a really big fan of Daniel Craig.
Yeah, I'd be willing to bet he probably watched like the Roger Moore films like 5 times in between.
Yeah,
and that, because Roger Moore was his Bond, I think.
Yeah,
definitely. I think he could watch all 7 of the Moore films quite easily.
Yeah,
I watched them in honor of him. I think a few days or the day before his funeral, I just binged watched them. It just brought me a lot of comfort when I was watching them, because I just could just sit down and he was with me watching them.
Yeah,
and it was just great. I'll always have a special place in my heart for the Moore films, I think, now moving forward, definitely. Because, like I said, he never sort of said to us, Roger Moore's my favourite Bond. He never outright confirmed who his favourite Bond was, but I think me and you both know for sure who it was.
Yeah, I think it was pretty obvious to us.
It was obvious.
That it was him. Yeah,
It was Moore. Because even like you said, some of the henchmen stuff in that movie, like I always remember that brawl scene in I think it's Man with the Golden Gun.
Yeah,
where he swallows the bullet and some of the henchmen coming in. I remember Rich doing an impression of them.
Yeah,
absolutely making me laugh.
Yeah, brilliant. But even still, because I know, I think it's fairly safe to say with us, our favorite is Timothy Dalton.
Yeah.
And I always remember Rich saying that he could never really remember the Timothy Dalton films, but I do remember he did rewatch them, and I think he did like them. I think he did sort of come around to them. I think License to Kill in particular, I do remember him sort of like, I think he did enjoy it, even though it was definitely a more violent, less humorous Bond. But yeah, he just loved all of them, basically.
Yeah, he did.
He found like the good in all of them.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't have like huge movie collections like me and you have got, and he'd come round to our houses, and I think he'd just be in awe of them as well. And another thing I want to touch on just about him quickly is he was a massive animal lover as well. He loved animals, no matter what they were. He was just in awe of them. He'd come round and he'd be like seeing the cats or playing with the dogs or whatever. He just loved animals. I think if he wasn't a doctor, he probably would have been a vet. There was no doubt he had the capability to do so. He could do anything he wanted academically, Richard. He could just, if he wanted to do it and set his mind to it, he could pull it off with ease, I think.
Yeah. I can remember in particular when it came to animals, that's when he really showed his silly side as well. You know, because like his dog Flo, I just remember he'd do like, you know, just really not like, you know, like little kind of like teasing her, but not in a bad way, you know, just doing like little silly things with her, making like silly noises and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think like, you know, his dog Flo, like he absolutely adored her. But yeah, he was. But even when he'd like come to mine, you know, because I've always kind of had cats. You know, he'd always like want to go and play with the cats and all that. So yeah, he definitely loved all animals.
Yeah, because I remember I've got a photo of him with my dog Logan. Logan's just sat in his lap, And I think I remember he was at my house one time and you were coming around as well. And I think you just saw him in the window getting attacked by Logan, like getting licked all over. You could just see this.
Yeah, I remember. I think I rang the doorbell, and
Yeah.
I don't know why. I just decided to just look up to like the upstairs window, and all I could see was Rich's face kind of reclined back, and this dog was just. It was just said Rich was like like trying to like sort of like letting it happen, but kind of like like
yeah. Yeah, he loved animals as well. As another point I wanted to make.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving on to the next two films for me. These are my top two that I associate with Rich. So this next one, I think you'll agree, this is one of his favorite films. I'd say this is probably in his top 3 favorite films of all time. Mm-hmm. The Full Monty.
Oh yeah, forgot about that one. But yeah, probably the most quotable film that we ever sort of did as a collective. Just I think every movie, every sort of piece of dialogue in that film is just quotable, and I think we could have like done the whole movie. We probably quoted every single line.
I think we did. I think in between texting each other and speaking to each other, I think we have actually quoted the entire film.
Yeah.
Because even the little things in that movie where I thought we've quoted that movie to death. Even when I got to the point of thinking that Rich would just find something else.
Yeah.
Prove me wrong. Like we haven't quoted it to death. He would find new stuff in it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think what he loved about it as well is just how British that film is.
Yeah.
How quintessentially it captures the working class. I think he just really sort of got into it. Another movie he liked that I didn't really watch with him, or I didn't really see it until later, was Brassed Off. But I knew he liked that film, but I don't have the affiliation with it as I do with the Full Monty towards Rich. It's not on the scale.
Yeah.
But I'm gutted he didn't get to see the miniseries that came out as well.
Yeah.
Because I honestly think he would have got some enjoyment from that.
Yeah, I think he definitely would have been interested in seeing it.
Yeah. It was heartbreaking. It was kind of heartbreaking that he wouldn't get to see that, because I know how much he loves the film.
Yeah.
It was just it's the characters in it, it's the dialogue in it, I don't know, the way they could be so mean to each other and then so friendly to each other, and there's like this again. There's this human element to it where they've all kind of got their problems, but they kind of just sort of like are there to like pick each other up. As well in the movie, the quotes as well, the music, they just were. It was overload with him with that movie. He absolutely loved it. I remember one time he had a friend from university, and they said they said to him, "I've never seen The Full Monty," and I think he said, "We need to cancel our plans and watch that film tonight, because that needs to be sorted. You watching that film? That's how much he loved this movie." It was safe to say one of his favorites.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, just like I said as well, the quotes in it were just off the charts. We had so many good memories about it as well. It's like hard to think of a few standouts because there's just that many.
Yeah. And I just want to say as well, I think his family, they all had a very similar sense of humor to Rich in a way. Because I can remember watching The Full Monty with him at his house. Probably, I don't know. We must have seen it so many times together, like as the 3 of us, or just 2 of us. But I think it was just me and him this particular time. And I think his parents had been out, and they came back home, and I remember his dad walking in, and it was literally at the end of the movie where they're sort of dancing and stripping off, and You Can Leave Your Hat On, the song is playing, and I just remember after his dad was just I could just hear him at the end of the house, like, "You can leave your hat on."
Yeah, I remember that. It's just his dad would just be singing that tune, like, like when we were watching it. It was, I remember that. That was so funny.
Yeah.
But the full Monty just the quips in it. I remember that scene where they have to strip off in the house, and I remember they were talking about cling film, and he says, "Oh, Gaz was like, oh, wrap it round, reduce the fat," and I was like, Richard's just picked up on that out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It was so good. If anyone's not seen it, I recommend watching it because that's probably the closest you'll get to a representation of his humor in film form, I think. That movie.
And it's a great film as well.
It is a great film. It's a superb film. I now make a collective effort to watch this and the next bunch of movies every 27th of September because I know how much he loved this movie.
Yeah.
It was safe to say one of his favorites.
Yeah.
He just absolutely loved it. He would never say, like, I don't want to talk about that film or I'm not in the mood to talk about it. You could just say the full Monty and it would spark a conversation.
Oh, yeah.
With him.
Yeah.
He would just have something new to bring to the table with it every time.
Yeah.
And it was such a delight.
Yeah.
But yeah, these are the last ones I've got now. The last series, and again, if it wasn't for you and Rich in particular, I don't think I would have gravitated to or have watched these films. And it's the American Pie films. Mm-hmm. So, I think this and the Full Monty easily top two when I think of Rich.
Yeah.
The sense of humor in those movies, I think, were right for us at the time. I think the movies came out at the right time.
Yeah.
We just gravitated to them. The characters, the soundtrack, the humor.
Yeah.
In those movies, it all worked. As smutty as they are, and as there's some good characters there and good stories there, I think.
Yeah, I think again, like sort of similar to Titanic, it was probably like the smuttiness, which is kind of why we gravitated to them when we did, because of like the age we were. There's the scenes where there's like a little bit of nudity there, and obviously being young lads, sort of like, I think we were kind of like preteen, seeing all that kind of stuff. It was kind of like whoa. So yeah, that was probably more of the reason why we got into them. But then, once we got past all of that and just saw like the humor in those films, there was no going back. And yeah, I just think the three of us, we just loved everything about those movies. And it is probably the series of films that I closely associate with Rich. I'll always think about him whenever I watch those films.
Yeah, I mean, if there was a series of films that I think of when I think of Rich, it probably is definitely American Pie, and then maybe closely followed by James Bond. But if I was to associate one film with him, it would probably be the Full Monty.
Yeah.
But yeah, American Pie is a series similar to Full Monty. He could just quote it so well. So
yeah.
I've never known anyone to impersonate Sean William Scott's laugh as accurately as Rich.
Yeah.
Like he could just nail it out of the park. He's so good with the impressions.
Yeah.
With that one,
yeah. But I know he loved those movies. He loved them that much that he even loved like the spin-off American Pie films. Like Bandcamp, Naked Mile. He got them all. Whenever like the next one came out, because I think they were all like straight to DVD. Whenever the next one came out, it was like a day one purchase for him. He didn't really buy that many films on physical media, but if there was an American Pie film, he would get them.
He would have it. Yeah.
And even like the spin-off ones, even though they're not as good as like the sort of the classic the classic ones, there was still bits in them that he'd find really funny. And it was him that kind of introduced me to those spin-off films, because I never really took an interest in them, just because they were like straight to DVD and different cast. But he was like, "Oh no, you gotta like watch them. You might find them quite funny." And to be fair, like I did, and yeah, he just loved them all.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw those straight to DVD American Pie films. Like I just saw the covers to them, and I was just like, oh man, I'm not interested in watching them.
Yeah,
Kind of like a snobby attitude towards them, but
yeah,
like, and rightly so in some respect, because there's no way the caliber of those cinema releases. They're just not. But again, watching them with Rich, some of the funniest movie watch-alongs we've done together.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely hysterical, on point.
Yeah. Because I seem to remember, I think the Naked Mile and Beta House in particular, like, were probably out of the spin-off ones. They were probably the better two. And there were just some really funny moments in those films, and again, just Rich just loved them.
Yeah, absolutely did. I was surprised at how much he gelled with American Pie.
Yeah.
Like how much he actually liked it, but just the quotes, the again, the music in those movies, absolutely synonymous. He would send recordings of himself singing some of the songs, and he'd change the pitch on the recording, so it would make his voice a hell of a lot higher.
Yeah,
and just so, again, sounding like a broken record, just so funny.
Yeah,
just absolutely on point with them. Pointing out things in them that you would never notice as well. There's that one scene in American Pie 2, just that background dancer.
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm in hysterics every time I watch that scene.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
That background dancer, it's so funny.
Yeah.
Even the stuff with like Stifler's brother in the second one, and Stifler's making those faces where he just like turns and he's like dead looks like shocked. Like,
yeah.
Oh God, yeah, he loved those movies. He loved the characters in them. Jim, Oz, Kevin, Stifler, and Finch. You could just relate to them and just get the humor from it. He adored them.
And I think why we probably love them so much as like a group of three is because I think all of those characters in those movies, I feel like we've kind of got a bit of all of those characters. I think we kind of related to each of the characters in our own different way, and at least that's certainly how I feel. And I think Rich probably kind of maybe felt the same. So yeah, they were just really funny movies, and just the characters were just likable and easy to relate to, and I think Rich probably liked that about them.
Yeah, I completely agree. Couldn't agree more with that. He was, again, similar to Full Monty. You could just say something about American Pie, and he would be up for talking about it.
Yeah,
you just absolutely. Again, sadly, no one would ever get to experience this again. But it was a treat and an experience watching a film with him.
Yeah.
Because we'll never have that again, but I'll never forget it.
Oh yeah.
I'll watch films with him that I watched with you and him, and I'll never forget the experience, and it will play with me over and over again.
Yeah.
I think it blows our minds with him.
Yeah. I know, like for anyone watching this, you'll probably have noticed that a lot of these movies are kind of very comedic. And I think that is probably what Rich did gravitate to. But I did notice in his later years, he did gravitate more to sort of like I don't want to say like better films, but like sort of non-comedic films. He wanted to sort of check out the sort of I remember he wanted to check out things like Pulp Fiction and The Shawshank Redemption, and just kind of more dramatic stuff. He did start to kind of have a taste for those types of films, and I always remember, he would come to the likes of us, to me and you, and he'd ask our opinions about them and that kind of stuff. So he was always into his films, but yeah, I think like the ones we kind of associate him best with was all the comedies, but he liked everything.
Yeah, you could. It's funny you should mention that, because I think towards the end, the last couple of years, whenever he'd come round to your house or my house, he would definitely be in awe of the collections. He would be looking round. He would constantly be in awe of it. He could take a good 20 minutes, half an hour, just looking round.
Yeah.
And he would message us both, and he'd be like, "Oh, I've picked this film up, off your recommendation. I've picked that film up. I've watched it. I really enjoyed it. I had such a good time." I remember one time he came round and he said, "Do you mind if we watch The Shining? Because I've never seen it."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, we can watch that. Absolutely." He loved it. He thought it was fantastic. He was just like, "Oh God, the atmosphere in that film was so creepy." He said he went and bought out a box set with it in with The Exorcist, and he said, "I've just bought this. It's the gruesome twosome." It had The Exorcist and The Shining in, and I was like, "Oh wow, I hope you enjoy it." He watched The Exorcist and he said, "Oh, it's a good film, but yeah, really disturbing in parts." I think the stuff he didn't gravitate to was kind of like the superhero movies and the sci-fi stuff. I don't think that was for him.
No.
He did try. Bless him, it wasn't for lack of trying, because he did. I think he watched Wonder Woman and he went. He was like, it was all right.
Yeah.
It was all right. It wasn't for him. I think he was just trying to be polite about it. But the more grounded stuff, if more atmospheric stuff like dramas, horror, in some cases action movies, that was why he was more gravitated towards the end.
Oh yeah.
Because I think you could see like how devoted me and you were to films, and I think he kind of wanted a slice of that.
Yeah,
he was not in a malicious way at all. He just come round, be in awe of it, and he would just be like, "Oh man, I want to just divulge into these films and watch them and just enjoy, get out of them what these guys are getting out of them." Because I think he just loved the idea of that.
Yeah, I think on the flip side, there were films that he introduced me to, because one film we haven't talked about it, but one film that I always associate with him as well is Death at a Funeral. That's like that, but that's one he introduced to me. And I'm so glad he did, because this is the British one, and it's probably one of my favorite comedies now. It's just great, and again, I have great memories of watching that with him. So there was definitely times where he would introduce stuff to us.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned Death at a Funeral, because I remember the three of us watching that. I don't think me and you had seen it.
Yeah.
And he just said, "Oh, you've got to watch Death at a Funeral. It's so funny. We'll get together time and watch it." And we watched it, and it didn't disappoint. Yeah, I loved it. You loved it. I think he was just so glad to see us laughing. Because it was so fun. Even when I remember him quoting it like a couple of days later.
Yeah,
it was just he was just brilliant at that. He could tap into that. I think he knew what we liked as well.
Yeah.
Like he just said the same with it as well. A couple of others that big movies that he enjoyed, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah,
that was one he absolutely loved.
Yeah.
So much funny quotes from that with Grandpa Joe and Wonka himself and the kids. He could just nail it. Oh, particularly Veruca Salt's dad. My God, he nailed that. He nailed that with the "I'm not a magician. You've got to give me time."
Oh yeah,
all that stuff. Just superb. And as well, another massive movie he was a fan of was Jurassic Park.
Oh yeah.
Despite it being sci-fi, I think that was the exception. He loved that movie. Absolutely loved Jurassic Park.
Yeah. Passion. I can always remember him doing impressions of like Richard Attenborough in that film.
Yeah,
like all the scenes where the sort of the serious scenes where I think, is it Dennis, the computer hacker guy? He basically shuts the park down and then just fucks off. And I just remember Richard Attenborough's like, why would he turn the other ones off? You know, like the gates and stuff. And I just remember Rich doing like impressions of things like that. Again, like moments that aren't really that funny, but whenever I watch the film now, when that particular scene comes up, I just think of Rich.
Yeah. So I think of Rich doing that impression of is Dennis Nedry, Wayne Knight's character.
Yeah.
That scene where he's that guy's waiting for him at the dock, and he's on the computer. He's like, "You gotta give me time. You gotta give me more time."
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you can hear the panic like set in.
Yeah.
And even the scene where he's driving in the rain and he hits the sign and he just spins it in frustration. Like,
yeah. I mean, that was another bit. I remember him laughing at that because I think he's like driving through the jungle or whatever, and he says something like, "Oh, I should have been there by now," and then he just like spins the wheel and he just goes out of control and just hits the sign, and it's just such a like it just kind of happens out of nowhere, and yeah, I just remember he found bits like that so funny.
Yeah, that was his talent, Rich. You watch a film with him, like a really good, solid blockbuster film, critically acclaimed film, and he'd tastefully find the funny moments in it.
Oh yeah,
Like you couldn't watch like Schindler's List with Rich and he'd find funny moments.
No,
like that's not the type of movie.
Yeah.
To watch with him at all, but it was you could watch like a good, solid movie with him, and you just pick up on the background characters or small supporting roles, and you just like impersonate them, and it would make it so much funnier than it was just a joy to watch.
Yeah. It's like I even remember in the second Jurassic Park, The Lost World, like the opening scene with like the families on the beach and the little girl walks off and she sees all the little dinosaurs, and then you can hear her screaming, and then the family all come running to see what's happened, and the scene just ends with the mum like screaming. And I just remember like bits like that, like Rich just found them so funny. But even though it's supposed to be like quite a dramatic moment, it's just. But I think so. What makes it work is you don't see what happens in that scene. It's kind of ambiguous as to how it ends. So I think it's all right to laugh at that scene, just because it's just so the mum's like scream is just so over the top and ridiculous, and yeah, it's just another moment that I associate with Rich.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm the same. Even I'd go as far as Jurassic Park 3 with William H. Macy's character. I associate that with Rich so much as well. The whole scene on the plane. Dr. Grant, would you please? Oh, like that was.
Again, never thought that scene, but then as soon as Rich pointed it out, it's I don't miss it now. I don't miss.
Yeah, it's you can watch Jurassic Park 3, see that scene, and think nothing of it.
Yeah,
because of Rich, it has me in stitches.
Yeah,
whenever I watch Jurassic Park 3, but that scene, he nailed it. It was superb.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any other movies that you'd sort of associate with Rich you can think of the top of your head.
Not movies, but I know there was like a couple of TV shows, like going back to John Cleese, Fawlty Towers. I think that was one of his favorites. I can remember he had like the VHS box set, but it must have been like the oldest edition of it. Like
I remember that must have been like from the fucking 80s or something.
Yeah, it must have been from the early 80s. But it looked like it had been because it was in his like the living room in his house, and it kind of looked like it had been on that shelf for like 20 years. Like at the time, it was just. But he loved Fawlty Towers, and I think he even loved South Park as well. I don't know if he loved it as much as me and you, but there was a lot of episodes I can remember that he did find funny.
Yeah, because he was quite up to date with South Park, from what I remember. I was like surprised how up to date he was with it, and he'd come round and say, "Oh, let's watch like a couple of episodes of South Park. This one's so funny."
Yeah,
and he put it on, and I never found it funny, like watching it on my own. But when I watched it with him, it was just comedy gold.
Oh yeah.
I know he was a big Friends fan as well. He did enjoy that, but his British stuff he really enjoyed. Fawlty Towers.
Yeah, Blackadder, that was another one he did love Blackadder.
I
think he loved. Did he like Mr. Bean? I think there was times where I can remember about that.
I know he was a fan of the film.
Oh
he did like the film now and again.
Yeah.
I think we might have watched that at some point.
Yeah, possibly.
But it was South Park. I remember him absolutely loving.
Yeah.
Yeah, big time. I like you said, not as much. I don't think as much as with me and you, but again, it was one of those shows I'll always associate with him.
Yeah, I think there were even times where, you know, like, say if we'd introduce him to a film or he'd introduce us to one. I remember there were times where I'd watch a film with him and it would be the first time we were both watching it. I think I can remember once when we were in uni. I think I went to his and we watched a film called I think it was called How Do You Know, with I think Jack Nicholson's. I think it might be Jack Nicholson's last film, and I just remember like we watched it, and but that was one of the rare times where we just didn't like it, and we just after it finished, we just kind of turned to each other and we were just like, "That wasn't very good, was it?"
It's kind of a dull film, that one.
Yeah, it just felt like a bit of a. It felt like we'd wasted the night. Like we could have like just put something better on, something funnier on. But yeah, there was always times where we were always like discovering films, either like as a collective or through each other.
Yeah, definitely. But I think the ones we've touched on, they're the ones that I'll always associate with him. Like I can't watch any of those and not think of him.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's just someone that played a massive part in my life, in your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, I think both of us will easily miss him forever.
Yeah.
Because there'll always be a point now where I'm moving forward and I'll just think, I'll be in situations where I'll ask myself, what would Rich have done?
Yeah.
In situations like that, what would he have done? Because you just felt like he was kind of like a beacon. I think for a lot of people, like you could look at him and see him as an example.
Oh yeah, definitely.
To how to sort of like conduct yourself and how to like cope with tough situations. Because yeah, he was just the benchmark in my opinion.
Yeah. I think even when we were in school, he was just someone that I kind of just looked up to him just because of how good he was, like as a person and just academically. And it's just, I think there are times where I'm like, God, I wish I could just conduct myself the way he does, or I could be as smart as he is, as successful as he is. He just didn't really have any flaws. He was just such a great person in every way.
Yeah, he was. I could see people like in his classes, like commenting like afterwards, like, how the hell's he got the knack for that? Like they'd be wound up about it. They'd be like, how's he managed to do that? And I can't get my head around it. And
yeah,
you just look at it, you'd just be like, oh, it's that easy, do it like this, and he'd show you how to do it. You wouldn't like be like, haha, you can't get it, you can't.
Oh no.
He'd extend that hand of friendship and he'd help you in the best way that he thought would be the best way to do it.
Yeah.
There's someone who, I won't say his name, but it was definitely when we were split in our year group, he was definitely on the other side. And he was there. Him and his partner were there at Richard's funeral. And he said he would not be where he was today if it wasn't for him. Because Richard helped him in any way that he needed the help. And I think he said that. I was in a conversation with him and Richard's brother at the funeral, and he said, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for Richard. Because he helped me get the grades I needed to get to do what I had to do. And that was just, it was amazing to hear, but it was so fitting to hear as well.
Yeah. I remember I think I got like certain messages from people saying similar things, like they really liked Rich and yeah, similar kind of thing. Like, they aspired to be like him and just things that I just didn't really know about. And I can remember I remember one person messaging me, and I was quite touched by what she said, because I think I don't think I'd actually messaged this person. I think she actually found out. She found out, and she messaged me like and said, just want to say really sorry, blah blah blah. I'm really thinking about you and Andy because I can remember seeing you guys in school, and you just seemed like three happy lads who just, you were like harmless, and you seem like really good friends, and it must be really hard for you at this moment. And again, it's just things like that. I had no idea that people thought those sorts of things about us, so it was kind of nice to hear. I think that's just it's all because of Rich, basically, that we were like that.
Like there's no sugarcoating it. When I got the news and when I found out, it was fucking devastating. It was devastating. I found out at work. I was sent home from work when I found out, and I just spent the rest of that afternoon trying to get in touch with everyone I could that knew him. And it was such a shame I had to do that under those circumstances, because everyone that got back in touch, because I don't think I could get in people. I tried to get in touch with people and couldn't for whatever reason. But the ones who got back to me were just it was comforting to hear from them. Despite that, everyone was so lovely and everyone was so sort of understanding about the situation, and they were in shock as much as I was, despite the fact that a lot of them had lost touch with him. But again, it just goes to show how impactful he was during that time when you're at school. He could not have been a better friend to either of us, I don't think. Our other friend as well, who would probably be the next closest person to him from school. I showed him the message I got, and it kind of hit him like a brick wall.
Oh yeah.
When he saw it, he was like, that kind of confirmed it. To him.
I think I think back to school, and there was lots of people there lots of friends that I had that they were all great and made it bearable, basically. But I think Rich was definitely up there with sort of being the most important in like making school bearable. And I don't know how it would have been without him. Again, it just shows how great he was as a friend.
Yeah, I mean, I said this at his funeral. The world is well and truly a shitter place without him. 100%. 100%. Because I think that time period, I think for both of us was quite difficult. Taking Richard's death out of that time period, it was quite a difficult time for both of us. We were both going through personal changes in life and things like that. But Rich again had a way of making you feel that things were going to be all right. Like I went through a breakup, and he just said to me, "You know what? You're both handling it like adults, and hopefully things are just going to be okay." And coming from him, that just made me feel better and safer.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's just not there anymore. It's just gone, and it's gone way, way too soon.
Yeah, I think the thing I always forget is like there'll be times where I'll just be watching a movie or something, and it could be something that it could be one of the movies we've mentioned tonight. And I always remember in the past, if I was watching one of those movies, I'd message him and just say, "Oh, I'm watching this. This scene's happened." And there are times where I go to do that, and then I'm like, "Oh no, I can't," because he's not here anymore. And it's things like that I'm really going to miss, because I think. It's not like we saw him every week. I think there were some years where we probably only saw him like 3 or 4 times a year. But every time we saw him, it was just, it was magical. It was just, you knew you were just in for a good time when you're going to see him, or he was coming to see you.
There'd be, like you said, there'd be massive gaps in between seeing him, But when we did meet up, it was like we'd never been away.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you knew the people you were coming back to. You just knew. I know Rich. I know what he's like. I know Mike. I know what he's like. Mm-hmm. It's going to be. I know what to expect, and I know what it's going to be like, and it's going to be an absolute joy. Mm-hmm. Being in these two lads' company, and yeah, it was. It's just a shame we'll never be able to watch Full Monty. We'll never be able to watch American Pie with him.
Yeah,
again. Yeah. But whenever I do watch those films, it'll always be a part of him will always be there when I watch them, because I cannot watch those movies and not think of him. So in a way, he will always be there. But it's it's just physically for him not being there, it's not the same.
Yeah. But I think, like you said, at least we had that time with him. Yeah. I think that's like sort of the most important thing. I mean, obviously, you know, we're all not going to be here forever. And certainly in his case, we would have liked him to have been around a lot longer. But at least we did have a good sort of, like, I don't know how long it was, like 25 years or something like that.
25 years. We met when we were 7.
Yeah.
And he died when he was 32. So.
Yeah, so it's good. At least we still had quite a good amount of time. Just enjoying it.
Yeah, I think I speak for you as well. It was a privilege and an honor to be able to call myself his friend.
Yeah.
To have known him in this short time. I feel gutted for people who didn't know him, because I feel like you've been missing out on a great human and a great individual. And I think people who did know him watching this would probably agree with that, because he was an individual, he was unique, he was one of a kind, and he left his mark.
Yeah.
He'll never be forgotten. He was just so thought of, and a wonderful, wonderful person.
Yeah.
And they say the good die young. I think Rich definitely falls into that category.
Yeah.
But he was just a superb individual with a great sense of humor.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, if there's anything else you want to add, or anything else, any thoughts you want to share on it?
I think, like, you know, just that last little bit you did then, I think that just couldn't have really said it better myself, really. I think all I can really say is that, you know, I miss him a lot. I love him. And it's, the world's definitely not as good a place without him, but I'm happy for the time that we did share, and especially like the three of us, like just the times we had, because they're definitely some of my most favorite memories.
Yeah, it can't be tainted, and it never will be. That's no matter who else I meet in the future or anything like that, no one can take those memories away from us. We've got them. I think it's safe to say I don't think any of us will ever meet another person like him.
Yeah.
He left, again, like I said, such an imprint in both mine and your sort of life. And the short time we did know him, some of the best years and get-togethers and laughs I think we've ever had.
Yeah, I mean, there are times where I think about him and I get sad because he's not here, but then there are other times where I'll just think of something he did, something he said, a quote from a movie he did, and it'll just put a smile on my face. And I'll just start laughing I'll just start laughing randomly. And it's those times that I'm kind of grateful that I can do that as well.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, if there's nothing else to be said, I'll wrap the video up. Yeah, so yeah, again, a very sort of different video, but one we wanted to make. We've been talking about this for a while, and we wanted to give our sort of tribute to a very close and personal friend to both of us, who we grew up with, who we were honoured to have known, honoured and a privilege to have called a friend, and who sadly is no longer with us. But we wanted to pay tribute to him in this way. We wanted to sort of share what he was like as a person, give people who didn't know him some sort of idea, because he's no longer with us. I don't want him to be forgotten.
Yeah,
and hopefully some people from school, from his university, may get wind of this video. I hope they do. If anyone's got any sort of memories or comments of Richard they want to share down below, please feel free to do so. Mike and myself will read them. And yeah, just hopefully we've done him some sort of justice with this video, because he well and truly deserves so much more than just a video. But he was just a great individual, and like we both said, we are not going to miss him enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll wrap the video up there, and I'll just say thanks to everyone who's watched. Thanks to you, Mike, for coming on and having this discussion, sharing your memories and your thoughts of Richard. Yeah. I've really enjoyed talking about him tonight, because
it's been great.
It's been great. So yeah, I'll leave the video there, guys, and just say stay safe, be good to each other, and we'll see you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.